This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guy Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. We've got a big show today. We've got a number of guests. We have Ricky Harris from Omnia Fishing coming on. Then we're going to do a full show with Dave Rush from Best on Tour. We're going to break down all that we know. There's a lot that we don't know also, and we're going to dive into why it is not cut and dry, why it is not black and white as to who's in, who's out on the Bassmaster Elite Series for next year. I think the classic field is pretty well set. We may have a special guest at the end of the show who had to sweat it out and do a little bit of work on his end to get into that Bassmaster Classic. But we're going to talk about why it's not set in stone, especially when it comes to the BPT. When it comes to Elite Series requalification, we know some anglers have already said, hey, this is my last day. Some anglers who are hoping to get in, some anglers who are on the bubble. We also have the team series going on. Was it not the thumb tip? Something thumb in Michigan. They're up there. There's smallmouth, there's largemouth. Did a really good show last week with Josh Bertrand and Dean Rojas, Team Smoky Mountain. They're competing today as one of the 4 teams to move on in the team series. But really, we're just going to break it down. We're going to go back through the season, some interesting trends. I don't think halfway through the season any of us had Pat Schlopper wading into the crowd with his second Elite Series trophy and over $250,000 in earning, with the rock music playing in the background as his adoring fans pat him on the back as he weighs in at a baseball stadium in Lacrosse, Wisconsin, with fans dressed in American flags, chugging Coors Lights and slapping him on the back and holding the trophy, a la Mike Iaconelli when he won in Philly. So we're going to get right into the show. First off, one of the longtime sponsors of BTL, get them on quarterly. That is Omnia Fishing. They're based up there up north in Minnesota. I was just up there for the Open on Leech. Really good to see like that kind of section. It wasn't that long ago when you talked about Wisconsin and outside of the Lacrosse area, which they've been going to for the better part of a decade. Man, you want to talk about a passionate fan base of hardcore dedicated bass fishermen. And obviously we saw with Seth Feider's Angler of the Year, you saw there were 3 Wisconsin guys that were in the top 10 this week with Kupal and Schlopper and Jay Shakuret. They show out. The biggest crowds in the Opens are up in Minnesota. The biggest crowds in the Elite Series from day 1 to day 4 in Lacrosse. Omnia Fishing based there out of the Twin Cities. Ricky Harris, not in the Twin Cities. I think Ricky's in Kentucky, but still part of that Omnia family. Ricky, thanks for jumping on BTL again really quick, just to talk a little bit of update as far as what is going on Omnia Fishing.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, Matt. And, just to your point, I want to say that that's something I've learned, working with Omnia the last few years. Again, like I said, I'm from Kentucky, so I'm pretty biased when it comes to, Kentucky and, Eastern Tennessee and just our, the number of anglers and things that we have. But, there is such a tremendous following up there too, Wisconsin, Minnesota, both. There's a lot of anglers up there. And of course, they have over, 10,000 lakes to choose from up around there.
I've heard that.
Plenty of water for everybody too. So it's, it's really cool to see, some of those regions just really get behind some of their anglers. And, I know the anglers really appreciate it too.
Yeah, it is. You get on that Omnia Pro app where you can have the C map and the different layerings and the bottom hardness, and you see you get further south and a lot of those aren't fully. You get up there, there's all sorts of little lakes that are mapped out with fishing reports and stuff. And then I always watch Tourney Tuesdays with Sam Sobey up there, and I'm always jealous because, man, if you tried to do like a tournament series of recording all of your Tuesday or Thursday nighters here, it would be like me just rotating the same 6 brush piles for 6 months and everybody knowing how it's done up there. They got so many lakes. They can have an entire a Tuesday night tournament series and fish a different lake every single week for 15 weeks, which is just so cool to have that. And they got the grass lakes, the dirty lakes, the clear, the hard rock stuff, smallmouth, largemouth. I guess there's no spotted bass up there, which are kind of near and dear to my heart. I know you like to catch a good spotted bass every now and then.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, what's going on at Omnia? I know you called and you said, hey, can you mention this on the show? And I said, well, why don't we just get you on? We try to get you on every quarter, talk a little bit about tips and trends, but kind of the tail end of a big giant sale at Omnia Fishing going on right now.
Yeah, right now we've currently got the site-wide sale going on, so it's 20% off site-wide. All you got to do is go and use the code CATCH20, and this will be lasting until tomorrow at midnight Central Time. So, you got to jump on this today or tomorrow one. But yeah, we've got 20% off site-wide. And then the other really cool thing too is that we still have the BTL Pro code active for Omnia Pro. So it's our our subscription service where you get access to, like you said, all the CMAP stuff. Of course, with the exclusive app with Navionics, you get all of that cartography as well, just like you would in the Navionics app. In addition to that, you get free shipping with no minimums throughout the year. So, there's the commerce benefits of it, and then the, mapping and technology too. So, so you get $50 gift card, the code's BTL Pro. And,
Capital BTL Pro. Links in the description of the show.
Yeah. And it's, $59 for the year. So, you're essentially paying, $9 to get access to all that information, in addition to the, the cashback opportunities and the free shipping with no minimums too. How it goes fishing, like a Tuesday night tournament, for instance, and you need, 2 bags of worms of this color, or you're out of, this size of weights, or, whatever it is that you need, you get free shipping, whether it's just 1 pack of jig heads, a pack of worms, whatever you need. So,
straight up hard sell, like Omnia, sponsor of BTL. This deal is, you legitimately save money on this deal. There is no catch into it. It's a $60. You get the $50 gift card. That immediately applies to your online purchases from Omnia. Then the free shipping, you get the pro, you get all of the stuff. Like I'm like logged in right here. I can like go into my account. I can do like all sorts of the fishing stuff. You can go into the mapping. There's all sorts of stuff on there, plus all the deals. And then 20% site-wide. That's site-wide means everything. I should have cleared that with you before that. So everything 20% off.
Yeah.
And then you could also apply that $50 gift card with that too.
Yeah, exactly. If you're smart about it,
that's baits, lines, rods, reels, terminal, everything. So if I wanted to buy a $1,000 reel, it's now $800, and then it's $750 with the $50 code.
You want to look at it that way? Yeah, it would be
all right. Definitely worth checking out. I would imagine, and I don't know how much insight you have to this, but I would imagine after the last month of BPT and Elite Series tournaments, the frogs are flying off the shelves at Omnia.
Yeah. It's been fascinating. I think this year especially, we've really started to see some, other categories really start to excel in the market. There for the longest time it was so focused around jig heads and minnows specifically, but things have really opened up tremendously. You have one of the trails that's not allowing forward facing sonar whatsoever, and then there's obviously some limitations with MLF and bass both. So it's really opened up that this year with more guys out there having to resort to different techniques and things. But yeah, frogs especially has been one that's been really, really hot here lately, which is cool for me to see, because I've just always loved to throw a frog myself personally, and it's cool to see that really being hot again.
Yeah, I think over the past year you're looking at upwards of a $500,000 in professional tournament earnings when you throw Jordan Lee's Swamp Lord victory in heavy hitters, and then Jacob Wheeler just had $100,000 win. This has cemented that angler of the year, and you saw what Schlopper did in this tournament, and then what Laker Howell did in the Bassmaster Open on Leech Lake and in an era. And we'll get into this more. I've got Dave Rush waiting in the wings. He's got a whole new studio set up. It's pretty impressive. Hopefully the audio works. But it's kind of cool. Like I said, in this era where there's a lot of focus on non-power fishing, stuff still catches fish and earns money.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Anything else to get in here, Ricky, before I let you know? Key point is that sale ends tomorrow on Omnia Fishing. So I put the link in the description, Omnia Fishing Pro. You can sign up for the Pro, $59, get your $50 gift card. That unlocks everything. Then 20% site wide. And then moving, is there a BTL code too? Moving forward after that, or I just have the Omnia Pro code?
Yeah, the Omnia Pro code.
Okay, the Omnia Pro code to get the code and then all sorts of stuff. So anything else, Ricky?
Yeah, the only thing I just want to call out is we've actually reactivated our weekly fishing report gift card giveaway as well. So anyone that goes and files a fishing report, we're looking at all the reports filed each week, and we're giving somebody $100 gift card each week just for filing a fishing report. So make sure to take any trips or want to file any fishing reports. By all means, go in there. Like I said, there's about every lake you could imagine. We have listed on there, and like I said, you could be entered in to win. We're giving away a $100 gift card every week, so that's another thing we've got going on too that I think would be really cool to see.
Very cool. I have that pulled up right there. All sorts of new stuff, and then like I said, you can go into like I can go into the water layers and look at bottom hardness, temperature, all sorts of stuff like that. So good stuff at Omnia. Thanks, Ricky. I appreciate it. Have a good morning. I appreciate you getting up early, jumping on BTO.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it.
All right. See ya. All right. There you go. Ricky Harris from Omnia. And I kind of got into a little bit of the meat of what we're going to talk about. We'll see if Dave Rush has audio now. Nope. Dave Rush still doesn't have audio. So we're going to take our first break of the show. And when we come back, hopefully we can have audio from the man, Dave Rush. I will say, folks, we tested this last night. Everything was absolutely perfect. I don't know what he hit, but he hit something. It's BTL Autumn Monday, back with Dave Rush from Best on Tour and an Elite Series Pro snuck in to the 2026 Bassmaster Classic in Knoxville, Tennessee by the skin of his teeth. We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
As a professional angler, there's only one thing that connects you to your paycheck. Probably the most crucial part to tournament bass fishing. I use Sunline because they have a line for every application. Shooter, FX2, All Might, super light line, big stuff, big sticks. Sunline has you covered.
Sharp as can be. Super strong, super durable.
Really good penetration.
Thinner and stronger.
Catch fish after fish.
I want to make sure that I'm using the best stuff possible.
World's finest hook. World's finest hook.
Gamakatsu, world's finest hook.
Hey guys, Brian Schmidt here with Spro. I'm going to talk to you about the confidence I have in the equipment I use. I have a charter boat business back home in Maryland. We fish for saltwater fish, and I also fish the Bassmasters Elite Series. So I keep my lights on by fishing. I have to have a lot of confidence in the equipment I use. Spro has me covered from head to toe, saltwater, freshwater, everything in between. A lot of high-end quality product. Spro has you covered.
Pro Bass Adventures is reinventing Mexico bass fishing. With boats equipped with 12-inch Garmin units and LiveScope Plus, free loaner fishing rods, and no-cost airport transportation, Pro Bass Adventures is proudly putting you in the best position for success. Pro Bass Adventures has lodges on Lake Baccarat and Lake El Salto, Mexico's two best trophy largemouth bass lakes. Visit probassadventures.com or email probassadventures@gmail.com. The official Mexico fishing lodge of Bass Talk Live.
Beatdown is efficient.
Rock solid.
100% American made.
This thing is super tough. I mean, this thing is not going anywhere.
I've ran the beat down double stack from Florida all the way up to New York. And the one thing that I know is when I get to my fishing destination, I never have to worry about issues with my graph mount.
Your options are endless with these mounts, but they're steady, they're solid. These are the most reliable mounts on the market, and you can't go wrong with the beat down.
When you're ready to hit the water, Denali Fishing has you covered. Regardless of your skill level, from beginner all the way up to tournament pro, Denali has rods, reels, and tungsten to get the job done. Check them out at denalifishing.com.
All right, welcome back, BTL on a Monday. We'll try this again.
What's up, Matt?
Oh my gosh, we have audio. What's going on? Dave Rush, best on tour with a very slick best on tour background now. It looks like you have some updated audio that works 1 out of 3 times. But we're in good shape. You even matched the bill of your Gamakatsu Simply the Best hat to the best on tour color. So we are rocking and rolling. If you know Dave Rush from Best on Tour this week, he jumps on every week where we give a 5 to 10 minute look at what is happening on and off the water in professional bass fishing. But I said, dude, just jump on today and we're going to chat about all things bass fishing, because there's a lot that we know after this past week in Lacrosse, but there's still also a lot that we don't know.
There's a ton that we don't know. As much as we would like to think we know based on point standings on both the Bassmaster Elite Series and the BPT, there are a lot of factors that go into exactly who will be fishing both tours in 2026, and we're just not sure yet.
One of the interesting things was I did not realize how few anglers had gone back to back in Angler of the Year titles. I think there's been only 3 anglers who have done that. I think Chris Johnston is the 4th, but going into this, Bassmaster, as much as you want to try to build drama and excitement in tournament fishing, it is a professional sport. And just like you see some Super Bowls that are blowouts, some NHL Stanley Cup finals that are 4-game sweeps, it's really not that often that you have kind of true drama going into that final event of the year with the defending champion as the reigning and defending, looking to go back to back. And then you look at Trey McKinney, since he burst onto the scene, he just had a couple of just like amateur mistakes last year. That's what they were, with the phone call, with some of this stuff, like just stuff that a 20-year-old does that cost him a pretty easy Angler of the Year title last year. And then to come into it and to find 2 guys tied, to me, is amazing that you could take a dude from Canada and the path that he's done and how consistent, and Trey McKinney, and look at their styles and their differences, and they go to 7 different bodies of water across the country, and they go into the final one with the exact same number of points. That's just a razor thin line.
It was extremely interesting. It was probably one of the closest AOY races in recent memory, for me at least. And like you said, I thought Bassmaster did a great job in building as much drama as they could. Obviously, anything can happen. There were chances that McKinney could come out on top, that Jay Shakurik could come out on top, and even Koya Fujita mathematically. But to see what Chris Johnson has done consistently over the past 2 years, and frankly, longer than that, he has the back-to-back AOY titles. But Chris Johnson, I mean, he's doing it from all the way down south to all the way up north. He has a fully rounded game, and just an impressive feat to join 3 other anglers in Bassmaster history as back-to-back AOYs, and no reason to think he's not going to be competing for that title again next year.
Yeah, I think I was reading he's missed like 7 checks in his entire Elite Series career. But one of the things that was unique about this year compared to a lot of other years was, just weather, geography wise, the way things stack up. You have seasons and things. A lot of the season has ended on smallmouth for the better part of the last, I'd say, decade has kind of been the trend. St. Clair, Champlain, St. Lawrence River. And I mean, I know you have your favorites there, but the smallmouth game is so much different. And then this was a mixed bag tournament, but predominantly, you know, the largemouth seemed to be the deciding factor in it. And when it comes down to a final event for excitement, just for fluctuation in points level, I think the largemouth element on us, I mean, it was a pretty stingy fishery. Like Lacrosse, like those, I think a lot of those fish have been like, I think they live a lot longer up north. I think they stay in the same kind of areas because of the current flow and the vegetation there. I think a lot of them know what a Spro bronze eye looks like now. I remember, you know, the first time we went up there, 13 or so, you watch Faircloth and those guys. I mean, it was every damn cast on a frog, Dave. And now it was a little bit tougher to get bit, but I loved that element watching Trey and Chris and Jay fight it out there for those last 3 days. And then we'll get to Pat Schlopper here in a little bit, because he had a couple big fish that did it. But like that one fish, the largemouth, I think there's so much more fluctuation instead of everybody just getting to 23. And then it's the guy who catches like the quarter pound, you know, heavier fish on that. I love an angler of the year that's a largemouth deal.
Yeah, I think the difference in years past were the weights that were coming out of Lacrosse. Even Schlopper, Kufal, locals who had fished there, you know, pretty much their entire lives were saying, man, this is, you know, unicorn bags like Lee Livesey's 20+ pound bag. You know, they were saying you don't usually see those things show up only in the spring and later, you know, right before it ices over in the winter and, you know, gets to where you can't fish it. There have been, you know, tournaments in the past. I agree with you. You know, that largemouth have played pre-forward facing sonar. If you remember up at St. Clair, those guys would have some good largemouth bags in the St. Clair River. Remember specifically St. Lawrence to end the season, Brandon Card, you know, top 10 on a largemouth when that was
John Murray's done it. Ish has done it.
Yeah, that has seemed to have not been the
Timmy
case
Horton.
with the tours finishing up on strictly smallmouth fisheries like the St. Lawrence River. So I'm in total agreement with you. I think it was a diverse fishery. It made for a great end of the year tournament and a great playground for the Angler of the Year race to play out. And bigger largemouth definitely saved the day for Pat Schlopper, and the confidence that he showed, just beyond the angling prowess, but just the understanding of what he had and how to navigate that river, the bars traffic, the other anglers, everything involved. I think, frankly, probably one of the biggest local advantages we have seen recently, just from that standpoint, not necessarily a spot standpoint, because if you know anything about rivers, you know they're constantly changing. Waypoints are really no good, especially when the grass is at its height like it is now. But just his understanding of how to manage exactly what he had in the strategy. And if you think about it, he did the same thing at the Sabine River. He had that one spot that he was fishing the pylons. He managed it perfectly, and the guy just has a great understanding of river systems in general.
Very cool. Also, I'll tell you what, like the Wisconsin guys have a look. The cargo shorts with the shirt, like between him and Caleb Koopalt. But then, like, it was awesome to see Pat, you take like to see Pat get that fired up and to like make those, and then, you know, like have that win earlier and kind of turn a season around midway through the season. Like I said, he did a $250,000 in the 2-time, and then to do the Iaconelli dive into the crowd. Like there has not been, in my opinion, since Iaconelli won, it was in Philly. Since Iaconelli won like that, there hasn't been that kind of genuine excitement and fervor for a win, where the crowd felt like they won when that dude lifted up the trophy. And to be honest with you, there were like 3 or 4 guys in that final day that the crowd would have been totally behind. But out of that, I think I got a number of texts from guys in Wisconsin that were like, dude, like you have no idea how much Pat deserves this win. And it was a really good reminder. We'll get into this. We'll do a whole segment on kind of how he went down, that experience matters, strategy still matters, gameplay still matters. decision making still matters. To me, there's a whole group of people who want a lot of things changed in this sport, and this past week turned all of their illogical reasonings completely on their head.
I agree, Matt. And, Pat has spoken about it publicly. Mercer has talked to him on stage about it a good bit. But, I had the opportunity to spend some time with Pat at at a media event in April on Lake Hartwell. And, man, at that point in the season, his confidence was shot. I mean, he was really down on himself. He was really down on the way he had performed. And he turned it around, went to the Sabine River right after, and just has not looked back. But you can say all you want. Well, the guy fished his strength. He's a shallow water power angler, so on and so forth. But you can't forget what he did with forward-facing sonar at Lake Fork, Toledo Bend, other fisheries. I mean, he has put in the work to be proficient at that as well, and to see him be able to manage both of those things. And mentally, we all know how important the mental factor is in professional fishing. I mean, it is a razor thin margin between being in the top 10 and in the 70s or 80s, and everybody will tell you that. And most of it is a mental deal. And to see him be able to fight through all of that adversity and understand, what he is capable of doing, and then able to get on a roll like that. I mean, the guy's impressive, man. I mean, you think about it. I mean, Bass Nation national champion, double qualifier, now 2-time Elite Series champion. I mean, he's getting in some rarefied air, and he's doing it in a quick manner. And a guy like that, he gets on a roll. I see big things coming from Pat Schlapper in his career.
I agree. So another dude who got on a roll in the second half of the year, he didn't have the wins, but was Dakota Ebare. And I know he was way down on himself after the first half. I mean, you're talking 59th, 54th, 51st, 61st, 75th. Like, those were his first 5 Elite Series stops. Then goes on a tear in the second half of the season. And then because of double qualifiers, he can join us on BTL as the last man in the 2026 Classic. Dakota, I don't think, like, even if we had you on a month ago, you would have, I don't think you thought that you would be fishing in the 2026 Bassmaster Classic. It's the weirdest thing, because you've had the most confidence over the last 3 or 4 years. And, we would have conversations like, man, like, when's Ebare going to turn it around? And then boom, you pull it out. I think this was a big career move for you.
Man, such a blessing, to be in the position I was in and know my back was against the wall, and then to, put everything I had into the last half of the season and for it to work out, man. It was really cool. First of all, thanks to Pat, man. Congratulations to him. I mean, what an awesome victory. I kind of listened in on the last part of that conversation, and man, that's just such an awesome deal to watch him win that tournament the way that he won it in front of his hometown. It was just, man, I mean, it was just an awesome event for bass fishing, to see him win, to see that crowd. I mean, I was there working the Nitro booth, and like, the energy in that place was awesome. Everybody was just fired up about bass fishing, and that was just really cool to see. And then for him to actually win was awesome. And then on top of that, being double qualified, allowed me to get in the Classic. And as of right now, I'm the last guy in. I'm sure somebody will probably win one of the EQs or something. Somebody else will double qualify somehow, and John Cruz will probably end up being the last guy in from the Elite Series. But I'm just thankful to be in, especially like you said, after the tough start of the season that I had.
What is that like, watching that and competing in the last one, knowing that you fish all year, you've got your whole blood, sweat, and tears into it, and it's going to come down to 1 bite and 5 points? That's got to be hard to wrap your head around while you're out there, because you think about other sports, while everything is happening, like, it's like a game. So it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5. It happens, and then you have time to decompress. You're out there on the river knowing for 8+ hours, plus the 3 days of practice, plus everything. Like, that's a lot of time to think about how you could have had 10 more points.
Mental exhaustion, man. That's the thing about these events, and I'm sure Pat right now can tell you, like, I mean, I'm sure, like, for the next 3 or 4 days, he's probably going to be done. I mean, it's so mentally exhausting through the course of practice, and then and then 4 days of competition in his case, and pulling it out there at the end. I mean, man, it's just crazy how much goes into that thought process and how mentally exhausting it becomes. But it was a roller coaster of emotions because, even after Lake Fork, I knew I still had a chance to probably make the Classic. I just had to figure out a way to get the train on the tracks. And it wasn't like it just happened overnight. It was crazy. Like Hartwell was a turning point for me in the season mentally. It was where I realized, like, look, man, I've got to get back to enjoying fishing and fix my internal issues and get it right on the water. And it was at Hartwell that happened. Well, on day one at Lake Fork, I blast them, and I had almost 32 pounds. I'm in 4th place. But then I go out on day 2, and I fall off the train tracks again, and I end up in 75th place. It ended up being my worst finish ever. And it was crazy. I was fishing around all the right guys. I was fishing around all the right areas with the right guys there that ended up winning the tournaments. I'd had a huge day on day 1, and I just couldn't get the bites. And it was so hard because I was looking at so many giant fish, and it was wild, and I had to regroup from that. And I go to the Sabine River, and I have a good tournament going. And then on the 3rd day, I didn't catch a bass. Like, it was unbelievable. And I was around Pat. I was around all kind of guys that were catching them. And, like, I watched guys on day 4 online fish the exact stump or the exact stick up that I cast to 6 times the day before and never caught a bass. So, and then even some of the tournaments early in the year, I missed the cut by like an ounce, or I missed the cut by 3 ounces or something. So all year long it was just this just roller coaster of emotion, and then all the way into this tournament. Coming in on Saturday thinking I've got 10 pounds and there's no way that I'm gonna make the Classic, but I kind of had come to terms with it, and I was like, look, man, I've done everything I can do. I made a comeback second half of the season. We're gonna roll with it. I'm gonna work my tail off in the off season. I'll be fine. Life is fine. It's okay. And then I get in and I realized that Robert G only caught 2, and I was like, oh crap, like, man, then maybe there's a chance. And then I talked to Polnick, and he only caught 3, and I'm like, dude, I'm the only guy with a limit, like, that's in that little group of guys. And then after the weigh-in, I realized Polnick is still 1 point ahead of me somehow, even though I finished ahead of him in the tournament. And so, like, him and I were talking, and he was convinced he was going to be the first guy out. Well,
yeah, he said on
out
stage that he thought he was the first guy out.
Yeah,
and then I saw his post where he was like, holy crap, I'm in.
Yeah. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm out.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, there's still a chance. Now I got to watch, I got to watch live all day long.
You just hope that Stetson didn't win, right? I mean, I'm not personally, but I'm just saying from your standpoint, you had 9 guys that could win and you'd be in. You had 1 guy that could win, and now you're first man out.
And I literally talked to Stetson after the weigh-in. I seen him out behind the stage, and I was like, man, you had me in a bad spot, because you are like, Stetson is like the nicest guy on tour, man. I mean, I have the utmost respect for Stetson. I like the heck out of Stetson. I've looked up to Stetson for so long, and I'm like, I had to wish against you all day long, because you're the only guy that could knock me out of not making the Classic, So it kind of had me torn there, It was you don't ever want to root against somebody, especially not against somebody as nice as Stetson. But at the end of the day, it all worked out, and I'm extremely thankful for it. And I've learned so much through this season. And I would say that I've gained more out of this season of trial and tribulation than I have in any other season that I've almost won AOI in or had a lot of success in and finished in the top 5 in points. This has been a huge year for me, and I mean that in a positive way, even after all of it's said and done. And I'm really excited about the future, and what's coming. It's really got me back in gear, and I'm ready to go to work.
You keeping the mustache for the Classic?
I don't know, man. I might. I don't know. Deer season's coming. I kind of need to grow out my beard a little bit. I don't like wearing a face mask.
Yeah, you need to give Zaldane some tips. Yours actually looks like, like a Texan who knows how to grow a mustache. Zaldane's like 7 years in on the thing.
Well, I was getting mustache tips from a fighter So Shelby and I were standing in the back line next to Fighter. The way it was taking forever because everybody was talking, on Saturday, and Fighter standing right there. And my dadgum girlfriend told me that Fighter had a better mustache than me, so I'm a little
Oh, that's
pissed
not
off
good.
about that. Well, it was funny because she's like, you need to trim it and this and that. And he's like, no, you got to grow it out more. You got to grow it like really long, and then you trim it exactly how it's supposed to be. Like that's how you get, the perfect mustache. And I'm like, see, I told you I got to keep growing it. And she's like, it's getting out of hand. Whenever you start like eating food and it starts kind of like getting in, yeah, it's getting pretty bad.
Anything you want to throw in here, Dave, before we let Dakota go? I know been a big week for you. I texted you early this morning. I greatly appreciate you jumping on. Looks like you've upgraded your internet. I'm not sure where you were before, but like great Wi-Fi service now. Maybe with all those tournament earnings, we've invested in a Starlink.
Well, I have Starlink at the house in East Texas, and that's where I don't have. Still in Minnesota, but
okay.
Yeah, but no, this Airbnb has great internet, so it's perfect.
Nice.
Yeah, congratulations, Dakota, on a great first season on the Bassmaster Elites and qualifying for the Classic. I know you're fresh off of it, but coming out of the season and thinking about next season, is there anything that you're going to do to prepare differently, or you're already kind of thinking about that you could do a little bit differently?
There's no doubt, man, that I'm gonna be the first one to admit this. I got a little. I don't know. I found myself in this little bit of coast mode. I'm gonna say that I got complacent in a way. Like I just quit working, man. Like I quit working like I used to. I mean, there was a lot of people. I heard all the time like you're the hardest working guy in bass fishing. This and that. And I mean, I don't. I'm not gonna say I outworked Jacob Wheeler or Trey McKinney or any of them guys back, a couple years ago, but I was working as hard as anyone else in the sport. And through the course of just, more sponsor obligations, business obligations, life, and this and that, whenever I was in the first probably 6 or 7 years of my career, it was just me, a truck, a boat, and a camper, and we rock and rolled, and I didn't think about nothing else in life. And then so I've had to learn how to kind of manage the rest of that stuff, but I've realized through the course of this season, especially, and last season, struggling a little bit, that I've gotten a little bit behind, man. I've got to pick up the tempo, get back to working the way that I used to work at the sport, because it's always evolving, it's always changing, and the competition is getting so good. And I still believe in myself that I can compete with anyone, but I've got to put in the work like I used to. And so I'm going to really get back to that in the off season. I'm going to really get back to just hustling as hard as I possibly can, focusing on bass fishing, and focusing on being the best I can on the water. And I'm really looking forward to it. Like I am fired up about bass fishing right now. So I'm excited for it. And I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a heck of a week. It's been a blessing and a lot of fun, man. Dang, it was a fun place. Lacrosse is a phenomenal fishery. It's very challenging, but a lot of fun. And it was just really cool. Like I said, I'll end with this. Just seeing, congratulations again to Pat. Regardless that it got me in the Classic, it was awesome seeing him win that tournament. The way that he won it, fishing the way that he likes to fish, in a tournament that you would think could have definitely been dominated with live scope, but it was yet won traditionally fishing. You'd have thought Coyer or somebody like that. I mean, Jay, some of these guys are the best in the world at live scope in a really, really good place in the Black River where there's a lot of opportunities to catch a lot of big fish. There was tons of big bass in that Black River that could have been caught and weighed in and blown the tournament out, but it didn't happen. And it just goes to show, like, man, this sport is still in a good place, and all the different dynamics in it all plays in the right time and place. And it was an awesome event to watch.
Well said. Dave and I may dive into that in the second half of the show. Depends how frisky I feel.
There you go.
I got into my first Instagram comment war in probably 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Night. Yeah.
Well, there was, man, I don't want to take too much. I hope,
No, we're all good. Yeah, I got nowhere to be. You got anywhere to be, Dave?
Nope.
Well, no, I mean, and I won't get too long into it because everybody's always heard my spill on everybody's already heard my spill on it. But, there were several events where, this year that really showed that, man, you just have to be well-rounded, and then you have to know how to do it all in this sport, to be successful at the top level. 10 Killer was another example of that. Wes Logan winning that event the way that he won it. And I'm here to tell you, there were winning fish and brush piles all over that lake, and they would not bite. And it was very obvious that none of us could figure out how to get on a bite because there was plenty of guys that tried to win that tournament that way. And the fish to win were out there. But the fish are getting conditioned to live scope very quickly. And so you're starting to see these traditional,
It's like
techniques.
Chris has gone back to back, Dakota. I mean, look at the guy can straight scope, but then
Absolutely.
some of his biggest and top 10 tournaments are punching, flipping,
Absolutely.
moving
Absolutely.
bait stuff. Like that's why
Yep.
he's at the very top.
Mm-hmm. You have to, and I really believe to be really good at live scope, to be like really, really good at live scope, to be able to compete at the top level of the sport, you have to have such an understanding of bass, their behavior, and what's going on underneath the water that you have to have. I mean, you have to have that skill set developed to be able to truly understand live scope and to be able to be proficient with it to be successful at a top level tournament. But even with that being said, like there's just still, lots of opportunity, and scheduling is huge. We have a great schedule next year on the Elite Series. Yep. It's going to diversify the field, and it's going to diversify the competition to where guys are going to be able to fish their strengths in a lot of situations. And I love it. Like, I think it's awesome. Like those Sabine, it's just funny because like those Sabine River tournaments, the grinders, those are the ones that I feel like are the. But then people complain when you get to a place like that because, like, oh, they're catching small fish or they're not catching giant fish, So it's just.
But I also like the fact that you go to a place like the Pasca Tank, and then you see what like Welcher was able to do, like a little bit like non-traditional power scoping, but still the majorities weren't. Like I like throwing those wild cards in there where you have. Like, I think that perfect venue is like a Lacrosse. Like, would not have surprised me had it been one on a minnow or a drop shot or something weird out there in the Black River or scoping current smallmouth or something. Also didn't surprise me how it was won. Like, to me, that is
not at all
like the Leech Lake, Laker Howell. Like, you fished Leech last year. Laker Howell goes 20-20 back to back on a freaking frog. And like, no one would have guessed that it would have taken 39-13 to win that. If someone had told me that, I'd have been like, oh, something's way off. And it was just the perfect split venue.
No, and that's such that tournament is such a good point too, because how many giant smallmouth are in that place? That tournament should have been blown away with live scope on smallmouths, but it's just not the way. Like, we're past that. Like, for one, way too many guys are really good at live scope now. And then two, the fish are getting so conditioned to it that it's just not like it was a couple of years ago. Yeah, it was an unfair advantage without a doubt. Like, because a lot of guys didn't know how to do it, especially at top level tours. So there was only a certain small percentage of guys that were actually proficient with live scope. The fish weren't conditioned to it, but now, like, it's really leveling out. And it's just so cool to see Laker do that. Like, and I like doing it all, but it's cool to see Laker do that because it's all about the narrative. Like, we've pushed this narrative so hard, that, oh, you got to be scoping. And then you see guys win these tournaments like Laker just did in a tournament that should have been dominated by live scope. And it's like, well, but that narrative won't necessarily get pushed much, because it doesn't necessarily fit somebody's certain agenda. Yeah, well, it doesn't get views and it doesn't fit certain agendas, So that's my biggest thing, man. I was like, I don't want to push that division and all that stuff. Like, I want people to understand that, like, man, fishing is okay. I've seen so many kids this week that were at that tournament that were so excited about bass fishing, man. Like, the future of the sport is awesome. Like, it's bright as ever, and we have a lot of opportunities out there to continue to grow the sport. We just got to do our job and not sending out false narratives for personal agendas and being the way that the sport kind of got in a funk. But I think we're on the backside of that. Like, I really do. And wins like this for Pat Schlapper show that to the world.
Positive discussion here, not negative, but as long as you're good, I want to keep you in on this because you're an East Texas guy, Rayburn, Toledo Bend, around there. You were still coming up at around like when the A rig got massive there, 2011, 12, 13, 14. And I'd had a couple kokanees last night and I called Dave and I was like, this reminds me of kind of the transition era of the Alabama rig when you had the team tournaments in that 11-12, when everybody started throwing it, you had a lot of guys that kind of came out of the woodwork in the local and team tournaments that were winning that hadn't won before, that were like, dude, I was just going down the bank and I was chucking it, but they understood the power of it. The fish weren't conditioned to it. And you had a bunch of people going, oh, we got to ban the Alabama rig. We can't do this. It's the end of fishing as we know it. There'll never be another jerkbait throwing. There'll never be another cold water jig. And then I was talking to Dave, and I was like, it's amazing how, we're in a very, like, the recency bias in bass fishing is unbelievable, because you look back on that, and what happened was, yeah, for a year or two, it was kind of chaos, but nothing in the long run can outwork time on the water, hard work, understanding, and talent. And it doesn't matter what sport you're in, whether it's the steroid era, whether it doesn't matter like what you're in, like it will always right itself. And you look at, that Alabama rig there's still just as many out, and there's still just as many tournaments in the time of the year when it should shine, but it's not nearly as powerful as it was. And you saw that dynamic where the guys who were getting their ass kicked by the guys you'd never heard of, it slowly kind of flipped around. And even though all those tools were at their disposal, the guys who put the time in, who lived on the water, who practiced the hardest, who understood the fishery, who had the most years of experience, started winning again. It just took a little bit of time to kind of right the ship, so to speak. And I think this is the same thing that is happening with the forward facing era, is the early adopters, like you mentioned, and I wasn't going to bring this up, but you mentioned it. The early adopters definitely had a major advantage of it, but as the field and the depth understands this, and as it turns, and as they understand how and when it works, it's going to flip back to the guys who are the most talented, who spend the time on the water, who understand the fisheries, who get the freaking nuances to all of that. And with our recency bias, we want to send it to a life sentence right off the bat, because look what happened last week. Give it some time, let it play out, get ahead of the curve this time to say, hey, like, we're going to do some restrictor plate stuff so we don't find ourselves in the position we were in 5 years ago, 5 years from now. But the ship is righting itself right now. Like, the ship is righting itself.
That is the bottom line, man. You need to clip that out right there. That needs to be on replay for like what you just said is as real as it gets. It's as raw as it gets. It's as true as it gets. There's no bias. Like, I'm not just saying. I'm telling you, that is and look, make no mistake, it will happen again. There will be something else that will happen again that will be innovative and next level, and there'll be a new way to catch them, and guys will dominate at the time. And it just so happens that I feel like the guys that are working the hardest at that time capitalize on that, and then they become the bad guys, But make no mistake, what you just said is the bottom line. And there's no substitute for hard work, time on the water. The guys that are putting in the most at that particular time, whenever, like, what is the whole saying? Like, whenever success and preparation meets opportunity, that's whenever, that is it. And there's no substitution for that. None whatsoever. And anything in life. So, and fishing is no different. It's just, fishermen are so passionate about fishing because we all love it so much, and we all want our place and time in it. But so we get all fired up, But I think it's no different than in the NFL or anything else. Like, people that are diehard NFL fans are just as passionate. They get on social media and they get in keyboard warrior fights over that stuff too.
I just watched a 30-minute discussion about the tush push.
I don't even know
so it's like one of the teams has this move that's like unbeatable. So when they're like 2 yards in, they can hand it, they do this thing, and they get 2 yards every single time. In the NFL, there's people that go, it should be illegal. It's so boring to watch, blah, blah, blah. And there was a dude who'd played in the NFL for so long, and he's like, guys, it's been around for like 3 years now. Trust me, defenses will figure out a way to stop it.
Yeah. No,
like, just sure. Like, I watched that SEC story on the wishbone. Guess what? It was dominant. Texas started it. Then they gave it to Oklahoma, Alabama. And you look at that era of all national championships and that. Well, guess what? It righted itself. More guys started doing it. Then everyone could implement it. Then the defenses learned how to stop it. It righted itself, and the team with the best athletes and the best coaching went back to winning it instead of the team with the best scheme.
Yeah, and it's a crazy analogy, but in the same way the defenses are going to adapt to that, learn how to stop that play. Man, like the reality of it is nature takes care of itself. Bass learn how to adapt to certain things, right? You know, I heard a guy talking last night about, the Lake Fork come up and they're like, man, the deep bite at Lake Fork has just been terrible this year, whatever. But guys are still catching the heck out of them on a frog up shallow, and they're like, but man, and it's the same way at Rayburn and Toledo and all these East Texas places. Man, these fish just don't get like they used to on those offshore places because so many people have learned how to crank them and Carolina rig them and find them with side imaging and find them with better mapping and stuff. They just don't live like that no more. Like I heard Corey Rambo and a couple other guys like Rayburn Hammers that were like, man, we just don't get it. Like I just ain't catching them fish on a Carolina rig like I used to. And it's because everyone knows about those holes now. Like everybody's figured it out through better mapping and guys winning off the same spots for years and years and years. It becomes community holes, and those fish just don't get there. It's their natural way of just adapting and trying to survive. I mean, it's just that's how they got to. It's just reality. And if you don't believe it, you take the A-rig analogy, and it shows it plain as day. Whenever the A-rig first come out, you could throw it anywhere, and bass would bite it anywhere. And now you can't do that. Like it's still a player, it still has its time and place, but it's not nearly as effective as it once was.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing a minnow is the same way. 4 or 5 years ago, you could throw a minnow, and 95% of them would bite it. And it didn't matter if you were throwing it the right way or shaking it the right way or had the right head or whatever. They saw it. It was in open water. They hadn't been caught like that before, and they bit it. And now it went from 95% of those fish biting to about 25% of those fish
Mm-hmm.
biting. And it's happened fast. And it's almost like it's kind of unbelievable that fish are able to adapt as fast as they
It
do.
is, Dave. You're in the Carolinas. Didn't that happen with the chatterbait with Thrift and then Brett Hyde who got it and a couple of those guys? I know you did that whole documentary, the $1 million idea with Ron A. Davis. And I mean, when that thing first came out, wasn't it, back there in the 2003, 4, 5, 6? I mean, those guys literally tied on a chatterbait and blasted everybody.
Yeah, and that was on a nationwide level as well. We talked a little bit about that last night, Matt. We were talking about Brett Hyde as the example. I mean, he was kind of, I would say, one of the first guys that really took that thing, just had supreme confidence in it, and took it all over the country and was on, I mean, just a crazy roll there for 3 or 4 years. Just couldn't be stopped with it. And everyone else learned it, adapted to it. The fish adapted to it, and has not been as dominant of a bait ever since. And something else I was thinking about to add on to what you and Dakota were talking about, I think one of my biggest takeaways from this season has been a season to me where guys step their games up. You look at a guy like Bill Lowen. I mean, he gets the first win of the year at St. John's River, and you're thinking, oh, Lowen, the river rat, that's his deal. The guy finished, 12th, 13th in Angler of the Year race. And I'm sure he mixed in some forward-facing sonar in that as well. But I think it has just caused those guys, to Dakota's point, to get reinvigorated and say, you know what? I have a wealth of knowledge, a career of knowledge to lean on, but I have got to get back out.
You can't coast. You shouldn't be able to coast at the top level anyway.
I think Lowen is a prime example of, I mean, I'm sure if you talk to him, I'm probably think it's probably one of the hardest working seasons he's had. He's probably fished a lot more.
Mm-hmm. I'll get him on the show.
Fish.
He's kind of hard to get on now because one time I called his swim jig fluffy, and he's held that against me ever since then because it's like really light and bulky. And then he literally called me and was like, "So here you think I've got a fluffy swim jig?" And we've been kind of dicey ever since then. But yeah, he would be a great guest.
Yeah, he would be for sure. He's a classic example of that, man. That's a great point, Dave. Like he, and I've listened to him say that several times on stage. Like he had to get back to him, enjoying fishing, doing his thing, spending time on the water, and it's paid off. And it just goes to show, like, and there's so many guys like that though that are in the sport that are like that have just a wealth of knowledge. Like, and I may even include myself in that. Look at, but it's so easy to, like, regardless of the 7, 8 years of experience that I have at the time, at higher levels in the sport, it's easy to even go out there right now and be like, man, I don't think I'm gonna get a bite today. Like, it's so easy to like lose that confidence at times.
And this
especially when
coming
you
from
look-
a guy who has $1.1 million and 56 top 20s.
I'm telling you, there's been times throughout the season where I've been in my head thinking, there's no shot of me getting a bite. No shot. Like, what am I even doing out here? Like, I'm telling you. And so can you imagine? And I'm a guy that's like, I'm typically a glass half full kind of guy. So can you imagine a guy that has 20 years of experience that's forgot more about bass fishing than half the field even knows, but he's out there and he's thinking, I don't have a shot because I'm not using my live scope. Like, it just mentally wrecks you.
I think
And
that's
then,
why all those guys sucked 2-3 years ago when it came out. They changed their game. They tried to do different stuff. They thought their careers were over. They were mixing things up, doing stuff that they didn't believe in and didn't understand. And it goes back to what we were talking about, Dakota. We're 2-3 years after that boom now. And look at the guys who made the Classic this year. There's a lot of those old school guys.
Caleb Kufal, Schlapper's way up there, which I think Schlapper's
John
efficient for
Cox,
doing it
Bill
all.
Lowen,
John Cox,
Jordan
Bill
Lee,
Lowen.
Seth Fider, Justin Atkins, Drew Cook, Caleb Kupal, Brian Schmidt, Pat Schlapper, Kyle Welcher, Brock Mosley, Brian New, Lee Livesey, Bob Downey, Brandon Lester, Wes Logan.
I promise you, I don't think Lester's probably looked at his live scope very much this year,
Yeah, not
and
much.
look, he made the class. Like, it's awesome, man. It really is. It's cool to see it kind of come full circle. Now, my thing is this, like, let's learn from this, okay? Because like I said, make no mistake, the next thing is coming. And look, I'm not a guy that, and I hope this don't affect none of my contracts moving forward, but I understand that. Listen, like, at a certain point, we're gonna get kind of crazy with the electronics and the ability to do certain things. I don't see it happening in the near future. I don't see I don't see another live scope, quote unquote, being invented next year, right? Like, I see a 360 live or something, like whatever, but I don't see like new technology like that totally scrambles up the whole thing, right? I don't see that happening in the next couple of years, but a new bait, a new technique, new whatever is coming. Like, let's not allow social media and the internet to break like the industry. You know what I'm saying? I think that's my biggest thing. We need to learn from this as an industry and really as a society. Like, everybody, I've said this several times through the course of the summer on different podcasts, like, the world is just learning how to navigate social media. Like, we're in an era of like, everyone's got a voice, everyone's got an opinion. It's all public. It all goes out. Like, negativity gets a lot of traction at times. Like, so if we just need to learn, like, as an industry and really as a society to navigate that and use it in a positive way, not in a negative way. That's the only hope and prayer that I have for all this moving forward.
Well said. Anything else, Dave?
No, man. Hopefully we can continue the positivity. It was good to end the Elite Series on a positive note.
For sure.
Yeah. Like I said, I had you jump it off for 5-10 minutes just to say congrats, and now we're a half hour later. But that's what I love
about to get kicked out of my Airbnb, so I got to roll.
Later. See ya.
See y'all.
All right, dude. Like, a lot of people forget, Dave, that Dakota Ebare was one of the faces of MLF and the Bass Pro Tour and was winning everything and making over $250,000 a year for 3 or 4 years with multiple wins and multiple top 10s securely inside of the top 50, which at the time was coming in, 2-3 years from now, and took a gamble on himself.
He did, and it paid off. And I mean, to our conversation, I mean, think about the negativity that was surrounding a guy like Ebare and his performance, halfway through the season, via social media and whatnot. I mean, it's like, the guy, we knew he wasn't going to catch him, this, that, and other. It was a bad decision, so on and so forth. And, to be able to navigate that and block all that out as well. I mean, he's human. Everybody is. I mean, so for him to be able to just kind of put that aside as well and focus on what he needed to do and, play catch up and end the season on a high note and be there in Knoxville for the Classic. That's a great accomplishment on a lot of fronts.
And I also think, this is the other thing, like, no one ever took merit points away from Greg Hackney when he flipped and pitched his way in 6 of the 8 events to a top 10 in the Angler of the Year. But you look at, that's what he does, right? Like Mike McClellan threw jerkbait for however long. So, like, are you going to see a Koya in the top 10 in the Angler of the Year and maybe win an event every year, a couple events of a year, and he's doing something weird, but every single fish he catches, he sees? Absolutely. Just like you're going to have Greg Hackney, who is going to flip every single event of the year and maybe have some top 10s. But you're also, as what Dakota said, as this stuff evolves, I mean, you're also going to see the same thing like Hackney, who's going to flip when it's a live scope event, finish in 92nd, and Koya, who's going to scope in a flipping event and finish 95th in Florida to start the year out.
Yeah, I think Hackney is a great example. And I think a lot of this goes to, one of your points as far as people just forgetting history and are only focusing on what's happening now. If you throw it back to Hackney, one of his AOY title there at Escanaba, that one that got, delayed numerous days, he had, power fished his way through the entire season, not the greatest, smallmouth fisherman at that point, as far as, some of the deeper techniques, some of the stuff those guys were doing. And, I was in the boat with him that final day when he pulled up there to the weigh-in, bagging his fish, helping him out and, doing some media stuff. And he was convinced that he had not done enough to win that AOY title. And that just goes to show you, these guys, they have to adapt whatever the situation it is, whether it is learning, deep smallmouth fisheries, back in the day when they weren't, exposed to that type of stuff, or learning to deal with the forward-facing sonar issue. The cream is always going to rise to the top, and hard work always pays off. And I think you're seeing that.
To a point, it wasn't but 2 years ago that Kyle Welcher won the Angler of the Year on the Bassmaster Elite Series 2023, predominantly on power fishing. Brandon Cobb, he finished 2nd that year. Drew Cook was 4th, Schmidt was 8th, and Blaylock was 10th. Like, I think it's a false narrative. It really is. It's a false narrative that it's just the scopers.
Yeah,
this year proved it more than ever.
I do believe, to some of the comments I've seen you've been throwing up, to the viewers' points, that scheduling, does make a big difference in how that's going to play out.
1,000%, and I give Bass a massive props for that.
Yes, but another thing I learned this season was preconceived notions on the scheduling. I mean, and when the schedule comes out at the beginning of the year, we've probably already done it with the 2026 schedule. You're looking at like, that's a scope tournament, that's a non-scope tournament, Scoper's going to dominate. That really didn't play out that way this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did the Open Pros pick 'em with, and Kyle Patrick jumped on for this one at the Mississippi, and we all were, Minnow, drop shot, Black River, Main River stuff, live scope's going to dominate.
I mean,
and the local said, hold my beer. Literally hold my beer.
Right. and the Open Pros Pick'em show is also another great example of kind of how things played out this year. When you guys first started that this season, I mean, Castledine, I mean, his name was something like Scopers Only or whatever. I mean, everybody was like, you got to pick Scopers. You can't even compete in fantasy fishing if you don't pick Scopers. And it didn't play out that way. Obviously, some huge success forward facing played a role in this year for a lot of the guys. But I mean, even if you look at a guy like McKinney, I mean, the guy was catching them. Yeah, he was using
shockingly versatile.
Just very versatile. And I think, after you came back from that trip to Mexico, I think you got to know him a little bit better and said, man, the guy's a good fisherman. He's not just a scoper. The amount of time and effort and dedication he has to this, he is a very versatile fisherman. And I think you saw that play out. I mean, I can think of numerous tournaments where, you know, he was catching them, just not scoping them. He may have been using it to find pieces of structure and keep his bait in more productive areas, but he was not looking at all those fish on live scope that, you know, he was catching in the Mississippi River.
It's easy to look at a 23, 22, 21-year-old in today's day and age and just say it's because of one thing that they're better than me. And I'm not talking about other Elite Series anglers. I'm talking about anglers as a whole in the community. And we are drastically underestimating how well both MLF and BASS has prepared their anglers for professional careers in this industry through the junior bass masters, through the high school fishing, through the college fishing, how well the professional anglers have taught the younger generation through the social media, through the YouTube, through the live streams, through the shows. The fact of the matter is, a Tucker Smith, a Trey McKinney, all of those style of anglers who you look at and you're like, well, there's no way he can be that young and that good. They have more hours on the water consecutively learning with a mind that is more moldable, that is more open to things than a guy who fishes on the weekend for 20 years. Take a Tucker Smith with the 3-time back-to-back high school, the collegiate championship, the Aaron Martin's mentorship. That dude may be 23, 24 now, 22, whatever he is. He's been fishing multiple day tournaments at a high level, learning and gaining across the country with some of the best information available to him for a decade.
Yeah, I almost look at it now like, you know, fishing age is almost equivalent to like dog year age. That's kind of how I've been looking at it. I mean, these guys are spending so much time on the water perfecting their craft. And I know there's a lot of behind the scenes and internet chatter about unlimited practice and, you know, pre-practice and this, that, and other. And that's why these guys are doing so good. In my opinion, yeah, that helps, but just the sheer amount of time they are spending on a body of water.
They're treating it like a profession. They are not treating it like I'm a professional angler who fishes 10 to 12 weeks out of the year. To me, it is the same progression as, you know, you look in a baseball dugout 60, 70 years ago and guys are smoking darts in there and, you know, eating pizza and like, it's the same progression you're seeing in all other sports. And this sport is just 60 years old. I mean, we just had our you know, whatever, 55th classic, 50th classic on that. Like the same thing you're seeing with the baseball guys, with the coaches, with the training, with all that, you know, the Little League World Series just wrapped up. And my buddy Juice is talking about, he's like, my 6-year-old is on a team with guys who have a swing coach. You're seeing that development in the fishing arena. And then you're seeing the guys go, well, how could he get good that young? It's the same. You have more anglers that are treating it like a true profession 300 days a year, 350 days a year than they have before. It's not a show up and fish. And a lot of those guys back in the day fished more than all the rest of the other guys. So they were better. But I mean, you do that for 30, 40 years, you're going to slow down. You're going to find other things that are prioritized in your life. You're going to value family more. You're going to value time off. You're going to value the hunting. Like you've been there and you've done that. This generation, like they're in that prime with more tools at their disposal than ever before. So it should not be a surprise when you see them excel at a high level consistently.
No, and you can get in the weeds, you know, all day long about what gives them the ability to be able to do that, you know, privilege, financial stability, whatever you want. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, no matter whether a guy is, you know, training at a facility with a former NBA player and doing reps, or he's putting in the work out back, you know, doing dribbling drills 10 hours a day and shooting free throws all night, he's still putting in the work. So, you know, whether a guy is in $100,000 bass boat or out there in a 16-foot John boat, learning fish behavior, you are still learning, and it takes that dedication to compete at the highest level, and that's the exact way it should be.
I agree. Are there things in fishing that are gray areas where you can get maybe a leg up in the short term? Yeah, that stuff doesn't translate to long-term success in this sport. Like, to stick around for a long time with sponsors, with the respect, with that, you got to do things the right way and you got to work your ass off. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and that pertains to both on and off the water.
It's like I said, I don't know how far I want to get in the weeds in this, Dave, but the fact of the matter is there's a whole group of people who literally believe that they would be professional fishermen if it were not for the live scope, and they're purists and they don't have the black box. Those are the same people who before were bitching about, well, if I had the money to have the boat and had the fit that could pay for it, then I would be a pro. Or if I didn't have to work and could travel around, like the same people who are complaining about that are the same people who complained about the 9 other barriers that they've had as the reason why they're not professional anglers since 1990. That's the honest truth. This is just the latest and the most convenient.
Yeah, and like Dakota said, there will be something else.
And Dakota mentioned it, like, dude, that guy was always on the damn water. I've tried to get him on the show, like when he was kind of coming up through FLW, MLF, that type of stuff, when he started kind of making a name for himself in that East Texas. And like, he was always on the damn lake. Like, I couldn't get him on the show. Like, time after time, he'd be like, well, I'm fishing this, then I'm going to go fish this. Oh, I'm jumping in that BFL, but I'm going straight from this Toyota over here. Like, you look at how we made $1 million in MLF. It was like every tournament that he could fish, he fished and then practiced in between that for months and months and months.
Yeah, I mean, no substitute for hard work, I think.
Cranford's doing that here right now. Like, it, quite frankly, is Cranford's always on the damn water. I know he just had a kid. He made the EQs. He was top 10 in the points, but he's going to different bodies of water every day. He's not always posting about it. He doesn't say stuff about it, but he's trying to learn something different every single day. So then when he goes and he catches them, they're like, oh, well, how did he catch him? They don't see the 20 out of the last 25 days that he drove an hour to 3 hours in Oklahoma to put in on a lake and fish from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
No, I mean, you're definitely seeing it on the local level. I mean, here around the house, you're starting to see it. I mean, guys that are putting in the work on the bodies of water, whether it's on a local level, regional level, national level, the hard work is paying off. And I know we keep going back to that point, and like you said, there are various reasons why that's happening, level of importance that you place on the fishing, but you just can't begrudge a guy, in my opinion, who was willing to get out there and just put in so much effort to perfect his craft, and the hard work paying off and the results are showing it. And that's the bottom line.
A prime example of that, I'm going to pull it up right here. A prime example of that is this right here. Pat Schloffer's second Elite Series win, going out into the crowd, put the time in, put the work in, knew his craft, perfected his craft, made the right decisions, understood how the barges work, understood what it would take to win, understood what he needed to do. And he freaking did it.
Yeah, and I mean, the stars align there for Pat, on a fishery that he is super familiar with. But I also thought it was super cool when he thanked, a couple of the guys that he fished with, and he said, we learned together. He learned from them, with them, years of experience, years of hard work, and we have seen the home body of home water curse, play out the other way so many more times than it plays out in a positive way with a victory. For a guy like Pat Schlapper, it rarely happens on a professional level, but that guy, he made all the right moves, and I think a heck of a way to end the Elite Series season, reminiscent of Ike going out in the crowd at the Delaware River, and a pretty cool deal for Schlapper to have 2 Elite Series wins in one season, man. That puts him in really rare company.
Yeah. This just came to mind. This guy right here, Brandon Polinick. Like, there's a real easy way to justify sticking around and making sure you get your picture taken with all the other winners to try to stay relevant when you sucked. This dude does it not for himself. He does it for the good of the sport. He does it to promote the other anglers, to see him get into the Classic after a rough year last year and to grind it out. In my opinion, and I will include MLF and the Bassmaster Elite Series, if I was to pick one guy right now as the face of professional bass fishing, if I was to put one guy to someone who had never heard about it, I'm picking that guy right there, Brandon Polinick. That includes everybody that's out there.
I think that's a valid argument, especially given the grassroots way that he came to the biggest stage, one of the biggest stages in bass fishing, the dedication. I mean, he's a prime example also too of
Bass Nation 2011.
Yeah, and being able to balance priorities and life changing, but still having the passion for the sport. I mean, he was the guy, like you said, he was the Dakota Ebare. He was the guy that was, the Tundra Suites, the sleeping in the back of the truck, the constantly fishing. I mean, he kind of had to be. I mean, coming out, east from Idaho, the guy never went home. I mean, he just stayed out there and fished and perfected his craft. And yeah, now he's, has a family, children, some different priorities, but still has the passion for it. And I think most importantly with Brandon is he respects the amount of work that it took for him to get there. And he understands the amount of work that these guys are dedicating to perfecting their craft. And he really respects that. And I think really cool him sticking around, taking pictures with all the winners, congratulating them. Really good for the sport.
And like I said, there's a way you could do that where it would be real tacky.
Yeah,
and he makes it pure class.
Yep, doing it the right way.
Yep, and always has. And like I said, I think will for a long time. But you also take into how he fishes, his ups and downs. Also very loyal to a lot of his brands and his partners. Understands the game. Actually understands the importance of helping people who are in the outdoor industry related to the top level of tournament fishing, but aren't in it and don't understand it. Like with what some of the stuff he's done with like Meat Eater and the camping and the outdoor groups and stuff, he brings in a lot of influential people and puts their eyeballs on professional fishing and helps them understand it who otherwise wouldn't understand it.
That's a great point too. And if you look at Polinick's, sponsorship portfolio throughout the years, he's taken some chances with some smaller companies, some companies he really believed in, and really has not just gone to one big conglomerate type sponsorship package. Showing the budding professionals and guys that are doing it right now, there is a different way to do things.
Other thing, when we look down at who's in and who's out on the Elite Series, a couple guys have posted about it, right? So like Bernie Schultz, Matty Wong, I think Jonathan Kelly has said something about it, Chad Pipkins, Ed Lochran, but you're with Best on Tour. You guys post a bunch of stuff about like Angler of the Year standings and how all that stuff works and stuff. And when it comes to saying, oh, this guy's in or this guy's out, it's not as cut and dry as like when you're watching like a PGA Tour deal where you're like, this guy has to birdie this or he's in, because there's a lot of moving parts as to this and Bassmaster did a good job on live, with Ronnie, and they had the board and they did it more so this year than they've ever done before. Try to put it into perspective as who needs to catch what and what to stay in. But you've got a lot of personal decisions and a lot of like little movement and qualifications to figure out those last 2 or 3 in or out. Like, I'm very curious, is Milliken in? Is Milliken out? Is Milliken on the bubble? Like, where does that stuff shuffle out?
Yeah, I think the Zona and Sanders on their podcast have also done a good job of kind of pulling back the curtain on some of that stuff initially and getting the ball rolling. Bassmaster did a great job showing who was in and out, even on a almost like an hourly basis during the live stream. But one thing I've learned from doing this as long as we have is I don't know really who's in or out until Bassmaster officially posts the field for the 2026 Elite Series. There's so many factors, things happen between now and then. Guys decided they can't commit to fish, there's legends exemptions, so on and so forth. So I think you can have a decent idea of who's in or who's out. And, if somebody gets word and decides to share that publicly via social media or whatever, venue they decide to announce that on, you can rest assured that's probably pretty solid information. But otherwise, I don't ever count my chickens until they hatch. And when they actually put out the field and who's in it, that's what I go with.
Yeah. And especially over on the BPT with them going from 65 and cutting it down to 50, the points structure over there and how that worked, total scrambled egg. Who knows who's in or who's out there, because you have a combination of veterans and drop points and guys who are qualified but are leaving by choice, which drops it down, and double qualifiers through the invitationals with Bobby Lane doing that. You have all sorts of different factors that go into determining who's in and who's out. And you literally have to wait until those two organizations say, here's the list, or else you're really screwing with guys' livelihoods.
Yeah. And I think another factor now that we have to keep in mind is NPFL and scheduling. I mean, you have a lot of guys who are really happy about fishing just a straight 5-fish format with no forward facing sonar. So, it's always kind of been, when guys were doing the dual tour thing, it was always, hey, we just got to wait to see what the Bassmaster schedule is, what the BPT schedule is, MLF, whatnot. But now you factor in that NPFL schedule drop, and you've got guys who are making career decisions based on that as well. So
yeah,
there are just a lot of factors in where guys are going to fish in 2026.
I think the NPFL is at a very critical stage because they are. I've been very candid with the NPFL, and I feel like as far as media platforms have given them definitely their fair share of coverage and airtime. But I think now, and I used to call them the cat with 9 lives, because every time you think they're done, they land on their feet somehow. This past year, on looking on the outside in, was the strongest year for the NPFL. But I also think they're at a very critical turning point where they have to discover what their identity is. Is their identity a third professional tour that will require some sort of qualification to get on? Because right now, if I was to name like professional tours, like no one in the Bassmaster Opens is a professional angler, because you can pay an entry fee and get in. It's the same way with the NPFL right now. It's the same reason why the Elite Series was held at a higher standard than the FLW Tour for so many years. The NPFL is at a very critical point, in my opinion, as to, are they going to become a third viable, continue to become a third viable professional league, or are they going to become an Elite Series side hustle?
Yeah, I mean, if you know the history of the sport, at times early FLW was similar with the Ranger ownership and the ability to get into tournaments without necessarily qualifying for them. I think a great next step for NPFL would be a qualifying, a reef qualifying structure. And, maybe we'll see that moving forward. I think that would make a big difference.
If you look at their angler of the year, I mean, it comes down to Kyle Welcher, Greg Hackney, Patrick Walters. Like I said, there were, like a Keith Carson, like a number of different anglers who those first couple of years you were learning about them. And I thought, holy cow, this is going to be an awesome platform to get to know anglers who then move on. We saw a lot of them move on to BPT, move on to invitationals, rip through the opens, make the Bassmaster Elite Series. I don't know if it's fantastic. I don't know if it's bad. I don't know if it doesn't matter. But the same guys that you're watching on Bass Live, are vying for the NPFL title. I've always been a fan of, for the most part, letting guys fish what they fish, what they want to fish, unless there's qualifications on the line, like in the EQs. And it's a specific for a group of guys to try to move on. Like, I don't think the Elite Series should be allowed to fish in the EQs. I understand why they did it. It is what it is. If I was on the Elite Series and had a chance and was out of the Classic, I'd probably fish the damn things personally. But there's just some interesting dynamics there. You don't want to limit, but also, like, how do you create individualism and a different sense over on the NPFL with the same guys who are also the superstars on another league? And the NPFL has done a good job of not competing with the Elite Series, not competing with MLF. Like, I'm a fan of the NPFL. I think what they did was brilliant and took a lot of balls, and it worked amazingly well for them. But I do think there is there is something that has to be looked at as far as how do you separate yourself aside from, hey, no one, saw this fish before it bit, unless they were sight fishing or they were topwater fish or it was clear water. But hey,
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't think you can get away from that. I mean, currently, 9 out of the top 10 in AOY standings on the NPFL are, current Bassmaster Elite Series anglers. But I do think that when given the opportunity, the NPFL has done a good job of showcasing the guys that are not your household names. I think they've done a good job of that. They are giving those guys a platform to try to build their reputation, notoriety, reach, a broader audience. So I'm going to give them kudos for that as well. But I would agree with you. I think, they are in a transitional state. I think they have gotten better every season. So I would expect that, end of this season, they finish it out strong, go back to the drawing board, and hopefully, come back in 2026 with some more improvements.
We'll wrap things up today. I did not see 2025 as being the year of the frog and topwater. It was the year of the frog and topwater. I mean, BPT and Elite Series, you throw in Schlopper's buzzbait on the Sabine River, Wheeler's win this past one. I've already mentioned we had Laker Howell on this tournament for both the Angler of the Year with Chris Johnston, and then the frog and the flipping with Schlopp. Like, this was a year that came out of nowhere. There were some really badass swim bait bites throughout the year. You saw when Wheeler and who was it? When he beat him on the buzzbait on the last cast.
Jake Lawrence
had them on the show to talk about it. There's another buzzbait win there. Like, did not see that coming at all. Like, that buzzbait, that style of fishing to me had totally like not been on my radar, and it came roaring back in 2025, and it was badass.
Yeah, I mean, frog played a big role in Wheeler there at Saginaw. Again, scheduling and format played a big role in the resurgence of something like the frog. But really cool to also see, this last weekend, the diversity that guys are using that bait again. You saw guys frog and slop, just a straight, retrieve. You saw Brian Schmidt dialing it in with like almost a kind of a, pop-R type retrieve with the frog, like super slow, super methodical, showing the versatility of that bait again. So you saw the way the frog was being used in a lot of different ways in different events, and not just, a straight up regular frog retrieve, and guys really getting intricate with baits again. And that is cool to see. I think we really needed that, as far as seeing guys take baits, whether they were old, new, and really use them in different ways and get really intricate with the patterning and details of how they were using them. I mean, heck, Schmidt was taking the bronze eye popping frog, Midnight Walker, and changing out the black legs to white. That was just, a confidence thing. It was cool to see little tweaks like that, the way he was working it, to give some diversity to an industry I feel that really needed it here at the end of the year.
Don't let people tell you that there isn't good things happening in professional bass fishing. There are good things happening in professional bass fishing. There will always be controversy. There has always been controversy since Ray Scott had the first tournament. The reason he had the first tournament and that people showed up was because there'd been so much controversy before with frozen fish and illegal stuff and things like that. Like, that is always going to be a part of it. You can feed into the bullshit real easily, but you have to understand there's also really good shit happening in this sport. That's as bluntly as I can put it. And this coming from a guy who has a list of 11 things that I hated about the Bassmaster Opens this past year. Like, I'm pretty ruthless on it and brutally honest. Like, there's some really things that need to be changed too. But as a whole, look at the platform that Pat Schlopper just took advantage of this year. Not a flashy guy, a guy who's been around for a long time, who's grinded, who's earned his way to the top, who's done it his way. You were mentioned earlier this year, he was down earlier in the year and stuff. But the fact that I know it's still working is when you see what shows up at Lacrosse. You see Pat with that trophy. You see a guy do $250,000, make the Bassmaster Classic, literally have his dream realized as people chant his name as he goes out into the crowd with it. Like, that still works. That's still happening.
That's a great point. And I think something else that has been evident to me this season is the learning curve off of the water with anglers. We talk to a lot of guys behind the scenes, and their ability of learning how to cut out consuming so much negativity and getting caught up in all of the back and forth about what's not right about the sport. I know several guys I've talked to that made a huge effort mentally this year to cut out as much of that stuff as possible. And the results on the water were night and day versus the last two seasons. And I think that played a huge factor in it.
Well stated. Anything else? I love your new setup, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, man. Been working on it a little bit, and hopefully the audio stays good.
No, it's great. You guys want, I preach on this. It's half of my boat wrap. It's boat wrap. Every once in a while I say a word that makes me sound like I'm from Central Illinois. Wrap. You want more information, the latest on this stuff, everything that's going down, it is bestontour.net. There are no gimmicks, nothing, just like the Omnia thing. You sign up, bestontour.net, and it is literally a weekly newsletter that breaks down what is happening in the industry. Baits, motor, behind the scenes. There's no catches. They don't ask for anything. You don't send anything. Best on Tour makes money on it by getting subscribers and then running banner ads in the deal. Like, that's it. There's no catches to this. Dave runs it. I contribute to it. A bunch of guys contribute to it. bestontour.net. Sign up, give it a try. If you don't like it, just hit the unsubscribe and you'll never see it again.
Simple as that, man. I appreciate the conversation and appreciate your support.
All right. We'll see you, Dave. All right. Wasn't sure where that show was going to go. Wasn't planning on having Dakota on that long. That was fantastic. Thanks, Ricky from Omnia, for coming on to the first. And then obviously Dave Rush. I've been doing this for a long time with Dave. I've covered every single Elite Series. I started in the end of 2007 and then starting in 2008, all of them with Harold Allen, the legend, for a couple years. And then when he retired, Mark was looking, to still cover stuff on tour. I want to say 2010, I think was the year. And Dave, the fisherman out in South Carolina, had contributed to some things when the Elite Series was out at Clark's Hill. I think he actually followed the Cajun Baby for a day when he finished second to Jason Williamson in that event, and then came on full-time in 2010. And we went to every single Elite Series together and ran all the content on BassZone.com back when it was wide open on the Bass Zone. We did the live show with Mark Jeffries for 10 years. And then Dave kind of branched out, started learning some of the marketing, the media side, jumped on with the Outdoor Brands team for the, I guess, better part of over 7-8 years now. So he's been in the trenches. He's been to all of it. Also, full-time photographer and does a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So that's kind of who's behind Best on Tour. So really enjoyed today's show. A little therapeutic, really cool to kind of see, to put a bow on the end of the seasons. We do have the team series going on. I'm going to go watch Lucas and Ayler compete against Bertrand and Rojas. And then they're going to be on live today on MLF. Great ending to the season. I don't think Bass could have done a better job of ending it. And also on the TV show for trying to make the storylines as clean as possible so you knew what was on the line when the guys were watching it. I watched more this week of the live coverage on FS1 and on Bassmaster.com that I had before. Ronnie Moore and the guys did a great job of breaking down, saying who's in, who's out, who's at risk. Here it is for the Angler of the Year. Here it is for the Bassmaster Elite Series qualifications. Here it is for the Bassmaster Classic qualifications. All that stuff changes and is hard to do points-wise. So big shout out to Bassmaster for doing that. Also, yes, I saw that on it. Larry Nixon killed it on Bassmaster Live. There were just some things that Larry said that was like, dude, that's a guy who spent a lot of time with a worm in his hand. Where when they were fishing, Tucker Smith was out there catching those smallmouth on the little depression, and Larry, he's throwing the jig and he was talking about how there was grass and then there was rubble with a little sand in the depression. He was catching them, and Larry was like, man, I really wish I could get out there and see what he's feeling when he gets into that rubble on the bottom with the worm or with his jig. It was really cool. Larry Nixon, obviously first ballot Hall of Famer. He's in the Hall of Fame already. I'll probably see him at the end of the month. End of next month there at the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame in Branson, Missouri. So tomorrow we're going to try something new. Really cool. If you remember when Brad Hallman was back on, we used to do a breakdown that involved video clips and exactly what went down in the tournament. And it was kind of like a film room session, like a John Gruden type deal. Then we did it with me and Johnny Schultz in the Open a couple years ago, where he would kind of break down and I would do video clips. So I was watching Chris Saldane's live stream. Had about 1,000 people watching live throughout the whole thing. And we're going to do it with Chris. We're going to have 10 clips from the Mississippi River. We're going to have mapping. We're going to have baits. We're going to have a breakdown detail. We're going to run it in slow-mo, fast-mo, the break-offs, the 18.5 pounds on the second day. The bad third day, video clips from all of it, break it down, reasoning, why it was there, use the Deep Dive app to bring in stream flow and wind and water clarity, where he was, why he was, using the video clips and just seeing how it works. If that works, we're going to bring it back all next year and break down, regardless of whether it's a 100th place finish or a first place finish. So, and then on Wednesday, a Bass Fishing Hall of Fame show. Hopefully I might have a really cool announcement by then. Just kind of depends. And then Thursday, obviously back with day 4 with man Frank Scalish. Big shout out to Dave Rush for sitting through hour and 40 minutes of semi-ranting, but I think very pertinent and educated discussion. Same time, same place tomorrow. We'll talk to everybody then. See ya.